Different people in the church, and this really applies to every area of our lives. I've said it before. We have different temperament types, and temperament is a little different than personality. But we have extroverts, introverts, and a lot of people don't understand somebody that's not like them, and they butt heads. And it's important to know how to deal with people in these situations. We really as a church, we're with each other a lot, okay? Every day it's like, see you tomorrow. We see each other 5-6 days a week, the school kids, and there's constant interaction, and we got to learn how to get along, or we're going to drive each other crazy. Even work, a lot of times you're working 6-7 days a week with these people, and it's like, you got to learn how to deal with different people. We looked at treatment of the strong last week, and it's important that we have strong leadership. We need strong leadership as parents. We need strong leadership in our churches, schools. We need strong leadership. And sometimes strong leaders aren't perfect. They may rub you the wrong way. They may be gruff. They're the get-her-done type of people. And, they're going to get it done and maybe steamroll a few people, but they're the ones that you want, and they'll get it done. And they have their faults. They have every temperament has the good qualities and bad qualities, and we got to learn to, deal with those sort of people and realize it's important. It's important as a nation. We need strong leaders. I'd rather have a strong leader than everybody likes this is a really nice guy, I'd rather have, and when you look at the world stage, all these dictatorships, they're strong leaders. I'm not saying they're good leaders. I'm not saying they're kind, but in order to get like Putin, okay, to get to the top there and remain control for 20 years, and people want to kill you, and it's you're strong. And I'm not saying he's good. I'm saying he's bad. He's done a lot of terrible things. But you want a strong leader for your country to deal with the other strong leaders. If they lick their lips when they see a weak leader and they see their opportunity, and we're going to go in, and this guy's not going to do anything because he's weak, and the strong bullies will take over the block if we don't have strong leadership. We saw that not just this presidency, but another president, and he thought, if I'm just real nice to these people and give them money, and they're chanting death to America, but if we give them billions of dollars, they'll like us, and that backfired spectacularly. That did not work, okay? And being nice to the strong bullies, they just think, we're going to take advantage of this guy. We'll take his money, and then we'll still try to kill you, And that didn't work. So we need strong leadership in every area, and we should be strengthening the strong, supporting them, be there for them. Sometimes we think the strong don't need encouragement. Oh, he's a guy, he should be encouraging me. Well, you don't think pastor has problems and issues? And I get about this much of a taste at school, and I know how a little issue just blows up my day, and I'm consumed about it and worried, and what do people think? And I'm like, I sometimes have meetings and I get a little taste of what he has to deal with, and I don't have any idea the full extent, but I'm like, I'm glad I'm not the pastor. I'm glad I don't have to deal with these problems. I'm glad I don't, have to get up there and preach, and, all these people are saying things and doing things, and we need to be supporting them, encouraging them. It's lonely. Leadership is lonely, okay? The leader can't just go to the people and complain about all his problems and, oh yeah, Brother B.A., he's just a real, he's just an issue, and he can't go tell everybody, he can't go, leadership is lonely. You're at the top. You're not going to please everybody. That's another thing. Imagine that. You're going to upset somebody. There's no way you can make everybody happy. Somebody's going to be upset. That's not a great situation to be in. They're great men, but they're not perfect men, okay? Like I said, you can talk to my wife, and she knows more faults than you'll ever know, than you'll ever see. She's probably not going to tell you, hopefully. Maybe if you pay her enough, I don't know. But, she knows I'm far, far from perfect. I'm sure you could ask any pastor's wife, and they can tell you, or their kids, their parents aren't perfect. We have to understand that. Read the Bible. Hard to find a perfect man that never did anything wrong. Even some of the greatest leaders in the Bible, really, they had their times and they weren't perfect. We have to understand that. We also see a lot of great leaders don't always get along. Okay, they're strong personalities and they have disagreements. We saw Peter, and I think it was Peter and Paul, and they had their disagreements. Does that make anyone bad? No. Okay, you got two strong leaders that have their ideas on what needs to be done, and if they're different, well, they're gonna, they can't always get along. They have to go their separate ways, and we want to try to figure out who was wrong and who was right and who's the bad one and who's the good one, and it's just two strong leaders in two different directions, and we see that a lot. Barnabas, and we see that in the Bible, and Paul, they had sharp disagreements. They didn't always get along, and sometimes they're able to work it out later, but even great Christians don't always get along. But we need strong men, we need strong ladies, okay? I as a Christian school teacher, we need strong teachers. I joke with my wife, she's 5 foot tall, and she's there, and you got some punky 6 foot tall teenager mouthing off, you need a strong woman to put him in place. Sometimes it's intimidating, and I'm glad I'm 6'3" and I can stare most of them down. But she's got to be a strong leader. We need strong women. I love our ladies. Really, we run a lot of things and run the men. Not bad way, but are over the men in a lot of areas. We have them run banquets and do all sorts of things, and I'm glad our men can submit when it's time, but it's a lot of work. You need somebody that's a strong person to run these things. And so really, if you start tearing down leadership, you're going to hurt yourself. You're going to hurt your family. You're going to hurt your church. You're not helping anybody. And we tear leadership down. We have to be careful of that. And be careful of criticizing. If you're tearing down authority, what are you doing to yourself? You're tearing down your own authority, right? Okay, if you badmouth authority to your kids, they're going to look at you and say, well, you're not perfect. You do this. They know everything you do. They see it. They're watching. And so be careful of that. Support leadership. We need strong leadership. Be grateful for that. Well, if I was in charge, I would be doing a better job. You have no idea. Right, Gideon? When you run your own business, it's a lot of stress. It's a lot of stuff. You don't see, when you're a worker and you don't have to work and you just plug in and plug out, and then all of a sudden, you're in leadership, and it's like, this is a lot more than I thought it was. A lot more responsibility, a lot more worry, and it's a lot more to deal with, and we have to understand that. So that's treatment of the strong. I'm going to review. I got a little out of order. I did treatment of the weak, but I never finished it. So I'm going to do a little review of treatment of the weak, but also finish that up. And we talked about the weak means without power, little power. Bible says that him that is weak in the faith receive ye, but not to doubtful disputations. Bible talks about we're supposed to receive them, welcome them, have special interest in them. We don't remind them of their weakness, okay? Accept them as brothers in Christ. We're supposed to avoid doubtful disputations, okay? Don't get into arguments about irrelevant things. It's like we agree on 99%, but we got to argue about the 1% that we don't agree on. And bless God if you don't believe like I do on this. And it's like, I think we lose sight of the devil loves that when we get focused on these things, and we should have convictions. I'm not forcing my convictions on everybody else, and we've got to be careful of that. They talk about believeth he can eat all things, another who is weak eateth her herbs. Okay, you may be a vegetarian. You don't have to push that on everybody else. You can do that. That's fine, but just be careful. Don't get into that. The Bible says that they're weak. We're supposed to withdraw from those that have a disorderly walk. And that doesn't mean be unkind to anybody, okay? We're not supposed to be mean. It really talks about associating. It talks about eating with them. That's socializing with them, going over their house if they're not doing right. And it's talking about Christians. We're not supposed to run with that crowd. Okay, you're going to become like that crowd. Birds of a feather flock together. The people you hang around are are who you're going to be like. And I was doing a financial class, and they say, your finances is like the average of the 10 people that you hang around the most. That's, and I don't know how they prove that, but basically they're saying if you're gonna be around irresponsible people, you're probably gonna be irresponsible with your money. If you're around responsible people, then you're probably gonna be more responsible. So just some things about the week. We're gonna look at a little more treatment of the week, and I'm getting this from Brother Heil's book, Treatment of Church People. And he said he was praying with a young man who had a heavy burden. The man starts off by praying, "Dear Lord, take away my burden." Brother Hiles interrupted and said, "Lord, don't do that." And I couldn't imagine if I was praying with Brother Hiles and he interrupted me and told me what to pray. I think that'd really throw me off. If anybody started interrupting my prayers and telling me what to pray and what not to pray, that would kind of throw me for a loop. But he looked up and said, "Don't you think that God should take my burden away?" Hiles says, "No, I don't." Okay, one of the greatest preachers of our time. He had one of the largest churches in the world at the time, and he's telling you you're praying wrong. I mean, that's a little intimidating. The man starts to pray again. He says, "Lord, then don't take my burden away. Give me the strength to bear my burden," which is exactly what I would be praying for. I think that's a pretty good prayer. But he says, Hiles interrupts again, says, "Lord, don't do it." He said this, stop praying, and asked why he had asked the Lord not to give him strength to bear his burden. Hiles said, and I want you to get this, I'm going to read this twice. "Son, you don't get strength for your burdens, you get strength from your burdens. The burden is what makes you strong. The strongest Christians are those who have the most burdens, and they do not get strong in order to bear their burdens, they get strong because of their burdens." And this is kind of a little paradigm shift here. I'm going to read it one more time, maybe just the first one. You don't get strength for your burdens, you get strength from your burdens. We are always trying to avoid burdens, and we're praying all these prayer requests. And if you ask all of us, we'd probably say, "I don't want any trouble in my life. I don't want any problems. God, just give me everything smooth, nothing go wrong." But he makes this comparison to help you understand it. A man gets weights for his birthday or Christmas. Okay, I remember as a young teenager, I was about this skinny here, and I thought I could work out. I wanted a weight set for my birthday, and I could not put weight on. So you can't put muscles on a stick. So I just I used to eat and do everything I could to put weight on. Now it's kind of going full circle here, and I am it's catching up to me, and I'm like. My wife's like, "You're eating too many calories." She's got all these tips, and I'm like, "What's a calorie? I don't know. 400. I've never, had to worry about that. It was always eat as much as I could." But anyway, so I got the weight set, and I'm going to turn into Arnold Schwarzenegger here, if I just pump my little 2 dumbbells that I got there for Christmas. But we don't look at the weights and say, "Lord, take these weights away," right? Or give me the strength to lift these weights. We don't say, "I don't want the weights, get rid of them." What do we say? The very purpose of those weights is to make us strong. Okay, that's why we want the weight. The burden is to make us stronger. Seems like every time a Christian has a problem, we blame the devil, right? There's a problem, it must be the devil. It could be God giving us a weight set for Christmas. It's a different way to look at it. Hey, God maybe allowed this to help you. And we don't think of it like that. We think, "God, why did you do this? Why all these prayer requests, all these burdens? Why did you allow that?" Well, maybe God's trying to help you, try to make you stronger. The more the weights and the bigger the weights, the stronger the man, right? You start out and you're bench pressing the bar, when you're starting, and then you get stronger. Oh, here's brother here talking about weights here. Perfect timing here. I'll have to reiterate this. So we're talking about, for the late person that just came in, for the late bodybuilder that just came in, talking about burdens, and I'll say this. You don't get strength for your burdens, you get strength from your burdens. We're talking about burdens. We compare it to weight sets. We don't say, "Lord, take away the weights," or "give me the strength to lift these weights." The purpose of weights is to make us stronger. And like we said, we want to blame the devil when we have problems. Could be God. The more weights, the bigger the weights, the stronger the man. Okay? And the more burdens and the bigger the burdens that the Christian bears, the stronger he becomes. God may be growing you to deal with something else. I kind of think of David, and God sent along a lion and a bear. Okay, and I'm glad he doesn't send those along in my life, because I would be running and calling 911. But what did he do? It gave him confidence. Hey, I took care of this. Hey, I could take care of this lion. I took care of a bear. Hey, I could take care of Goliath. I've already fought barehanded against a bear and a lion, and this, I'm not, I can do it. I can handle it. Okay, God was building him up, and that's what convinced Saul that maybe I'll give this guy a shot. But, God sometimes puts things in our lives to show us, hey, I can do this. God gave me the power to overcome this, the bear. God gave me the power to overcome the lion. I can overcome this giant. And God does that sometimes. I think of when I got little kids, and I think of, I won't use her, she's right here, but her siblings, sometimes the littlest thing is like a big deal to them, right? It's like, the whole world is the end of the world, this little thing. I can't, color this piece of paper or tie my shoe, and they're breaking down. And then teenagers, and it's real to them. It's very real. Somebody says something at school, and they're, but as adults, we've gone through so much. We realize, hey, it's not that big a deal. There's worse things. And, as we get older, we get stronger. We have to deal with bigger situations and more stress, and it's like, well, I did this before and I got through that. I know I can get through this. And God does that. He builds us up. He doesn't put life-changing burdens on a little 5-year-old, okay? But as you go older, we deal with stuff. So the more burdens, don't be afraid of burdens. Don't be afraid of trials in your life. How can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? It's like taking a test. You're going to make it through the test. It's how you do on the test. Think about that. God, how, did I panic? Did I freeze? Did I lose faith in God? How did I get through it? Or did I, trust God and He got me through, and I didn't stress and I got through it? I had the barbecue that I'm running, and I'm a worrier, I guess I would say sometimes, I worry about things, and I was in there, and I was getting a little stressed out, and I'm trying to, everybody's like, relax, it's going to be okay. But you know what? You keep doing it and you get better. Hey, I handled that. I got that. I'm going to be a little less stressed out next time. I know I can do it. And God does these things, and you grow and become stronger. Many are weak because they bear a load too soon. A few days after people get saved, they're on fire. We're like, oh, we need Sunday school teachers. Right? Why don't we just throw you right in there? You're on fire and you got zeal. And, sometimes we do that, and we have to be careful. We burden them. They're not ready. They have zeal, but they're baby Christians. They really don't know much spiritually. And we want to throw them into the fire there, and then they can't handle it. And then they end up leaving church and quitting. And we have to be careful of that. I try not to, I've learned to let people sit at least a year, Brother B.A., before I ask them to be a helper even. I want to see, hey, are you faithful? Are you coming? And I've done it, and I've put people in, and all these people, they got it. They know what they're doing. They'll be fine. And everybody jumps in, and they want them to help, and they get overwhelmed, and that's sad to see. The weightlifter starts off with the light weights and gradually increases the load. Okay, so that's what you want to do. You want to start out, you don't just give them a heavy weight, you give them a light weight, and they work up what they can handle. Some are weak because they carry too heavy a load. You don't give a novice weightlifter 300 pounds and say, here, go try to lift this. I can lift this bar. Well, you've been doing it for 10, 15 years. You built up, and you can handle that, and this kid can't handle it. And then he gets discouraged and quits. Because you've given them too heavy a load. Many Christians have taken up a load that was too heavy instead of gradually working their way up to that load. A young man can't try to work out with a weight he can't lift. Okay, you're not going to give him a weight he can't lift, and he's going to get discouraged. I had a gym where I used to work, and the guy had, the foreman had these dumbbells, and he couldn't find dumbbells big enough. So he had like the biggest dumbbells he could find, and then he Velcroed on extra weight on either side. And I can't remember how much. They're like 100 pounds or maybe more dumbbells that were special for him. And it's like, I'm not going to try to lift those. I'm not even going to be able to lift with 2 hands maybe what he had there. But he's built up and built up. But you wouldn't give that to somebody who's weak or just starting out. Care must be taken to not overload a Christian and give him too heavy a load. I rabbit trail, I watched these videos and I came across this guy, and he's like a professional weightlifter, but he doesn't look huge. He's kind of slimmer, and he does these pranks where he goes in and he's dressed up like a cleaning guy, and he's got overalls, so it kind of covers all his muscles, and he's got a beard, and these big, huge guys are like struggling to lift with 2 hands this huge weight, and he goes, can I move that? I got to clean, you know? And he goes over and he picks it up with one arm and moves it and then puts it down, and the guy is just a shock on their face. You know, how could this cleaner, just be moving this weight that he could barely lift with one arm? And he does stuff like that. But be careful that we're not giving too heavy a load. Many are weak because they have the wrong kind of load. Every Christian should know what type of load they can carry, what they're best suited for. Everybody has different gifts and talents. Many Christians have given tasks for which they are not suited. I try to ask some people when they come in as a Sunday school helper, sometimes I just have a need and I got to throw them in, but I say, do you like younger people or teens? And I get some people and they're like, I can't handle the 2 and 3-year-olds. They're too crazy. I'd rather have teens. And some people are like, I don't want the teens. They're too punky and, they got attitude, and I'll take the sweet 2 and 3-year-olds. And I try to place people where they're at and what they can do. Personally, I love the kids. I love especially primary and junior, that kind of middle age there. And they're not punky teenagers yet, but they're, that's kind of the age I like. And I'd prefer that over a seniors ministry, no offense. But, some people prefer the seniors, and I can't stand kids. Shocking. I can't remember the preacher. He goes, he was a really good preacher. He goes, I get scared preaching to kids. They scare me. And I'm like, you can preach in front of 200-300 adults, and then you're scared by a couple little kids? I love preaching in front of kids. You can tell if you got their attention. They're so excited, and they love it. And it's like, I'll take kids over adults any day. No offense to anybody here, but if I had my choice, primary kids, I love that age group. And some people, grown men, they're just scared to death to preach chapel. And I'm like, well, make sure we have the right kind of load. They become discouraged and later weak. So that's treatment of the weak. We got to be careful, make sure that we're not overwhelming people with too heavy of a load. Make sure they can carry a heavy load. Make sure they have the right kind of load. And really be careful. Sometimes we do people a disservice. We think, well, I'm going to help them by serving. Well, they just need to sit in the service. They just need to grow. They just need to be faithful. And we don't want to overwhelm them with stuff. And then they just drop everything because it's too much. And they're not ready. It takes a while to build up. We're going to look at treatment of the heartbroken. Turn to Isaiah 61, verse 1, if you could. Isaiah 61 verse 1 says, The Spirit of the Lord God is upon me, because the Lord hath anointed me to preach good tidings unto the meek. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and the opening of the prison to them that are bound. And one of the main ministries of a church is helping the heartbroken. Okay, reaching out to people. And then we just did prayer requests, and nearly everybody's got something on their heart and a burden, somebody that they're going through, or know somebody that's going through something. And it really it is heartbreaking to hear. But he who preaches for broken hearts will never want for a congregation. And really, that's our goal. We want to help people. We want to be a support. I mentioned it with my message Wednesday, like chess. You want to be, supporting each other. And that's really when you're playing chess. You got each piece, and you're supporting them. You're not leaving them out there. You're helping them. That's really our goal. And I really appreciate this church. But behind every face, there's a broken heart. Behind every smile, there's a reason to cry. And when you really sincerely talk to people, you get to it and you find out what's going on. And a lot of people, how you doing? We say, I'm fine, when you get really to know somebody and you find out all the stuff they're going through, it really puts you to shame sometimes. I'm like, the things I'm complaining about, my problems, don't seem as big when I'm talking to other people and I hear their problems, what they're going through. Look at the congregation, we see people with terrible illness in their body or that of a loved one. And that's tough to see. I almost think it'd be tougher for me to watch my children in pain than for me, when I'm watching my child and they can't breathe and they're struggling to breathe and you just can't, you feel helpless and you're watching your baby struggle. I'd rather it was me than them. Those whose hearts are broken because they're under spiritual attack or suffering severe criticism. We're in the social media age. We're talking about depression and bullying and, it's just words. Well, those words can have a tremendous impact and, we can all have the power to, give our opinion about everything and we don't care about what people are thinking. A wife whose husband has left her, a child whose dad no longer wants anything to do with them. Ride that bus and ask those kids what's going on in their lives. Most of them won't tell you unless they really know you, but I find out years later and I talk to them what they're going through and the dysfunction and just all the issues they had, and it just breaks your heart. People who have lost loved ones, that's tough to see. Trying to get them saved. Parents who have a child who's not doing right, breaking their hearts, and that break your heart to raise them in church and see them go off and not doing right and making mistakes and doing things, and there's nothing you can do, and that's hard. God's people should take extra care in the treatment of broken saints. So some tips on how to help people. Sometimes you get somebody's going through something. How do I react? And sometimes we just kind of ignore them because I don't know how to act around them. I don't want to say something or do something insensitive. But just some things. Act as normal as possible. They want to know of your love, but they don't want to be singled out for special attention. Okay? Just act normal. All right? We don't, single them out. Just let them know nothing has changed. Assure them that your relationship is the same as always. Do not do this verbally, but do it by treating them as you always have. Okay? Just go up, treat them, as you always have. Treat them like normal. And number one is act as normal as possible. It's usually best not to mention the problem. Okay? You may be opening up a wound that is closing, especially in public. I hurt, you don't want to go up to somebody and they're trying to get over it, and then they're upset and they're thinking about it again and they're crying, and, it may cause fresh hurt that is unnecessary. So it's kind of the elephant in the room. Do I say something? Do I don't? Just, you don't always need to say something. Okay, just be careful of that. Don't mention that. They, especially not in public. It's often best to not say things such as, I heard about your burden or I know about your problem. Okay, I know what we're best intentions. We're trying to make them feel better. We're trying to show them that we care, but sometimes it's just bringing up that wound. It's just reminding them of what happened, and it can not always be good. May cause them to become emotional in public. Okay, so we have a great thing. We have texting. You can text somebody, and just say, hey, praying for you. I care about you. Let them know, and it's not in public, and you're saying, hey, I'm there. I care about you, but you're not opening that fresh wound in public. So act as normal as possible. Best not to mention their problem. Do not try to figure out why. Number one thing, what is sometimes the first thing we think, well, it must be because of this. Why did that happen? Well, I know he's doing this, and probably God's judgment. That's the worst thing we can do. It's easy to become an Eliphaz, Zophar, or Bildad. They're great friends of Job. They're a real encouragement to him. What did they say? The first one said, you're having trouble because you're not spiritual enough. Okay, this is the most righteous man God can find. And his friends are saying, well, you're just not spiritual enough. Okay, you're not really helping. This guy, just think about what he went through. I don't think he couldn't lose. He lost everything besides his wife, his kids, his property, possessions, everything he had in like a single day, and you're going to come along and say, well, you're just not spiritual? Okay, not a really good friend there. Another said you're having trouble because you've left the traditions of your fathers. And the last said you're having trouble because you have sinned and God is punishing you. Oh man, did they miss the mark, right? Okay, Job was far more spiritual than these guys, I would hazard a guess. He didn't pick any of these three to go through these trials that Job went through. He picked Job, called him a righteous man, and they are way off the mark. Way off the mark. They don't know what they're talking about. God's got a special hand on Job, and he knows he's everybody in the world. He picks Job. How about my servant Job, a righteous man? And these guys, these unspiritual guys probably unspiritual because of what they were doing right here. They're coming along and saying, you're unspiritual, God's judging you. They had no idea. And they messed up, and God rebukes them. The truth is, no one knows why God does things. Don't try to think about it. We don't know. And, sometimes things just happen, disease and sickness, it just happens. And we think, well, God should prevent bad thing from happening to Christians. Well, it's not what he promises. That's not what he says. And, don't try to figure out why it's happening. More often than not, God's people face troubles and heartaches for reasons other than punishment of sin. We talked about burdens, and God gives us burdens for a reason to help us grow. He may do something in your life so you can relate to somebody else who's going through a hard time. When we had something tragic happen, there people came and said, I know what you're going through. I went through the same thing, and more than we realized. And they started telling us stories, and they're able to relate and realize you're not the only one suffering. You're not the only one going through it. They were an encouragement and a blessing. God may be putting you through something so you can help somebody else. And you don't know. You have no idea why they're going through that. God may be doing it to strengthen them. Okay? And our first thing is, he's judging you. You must have done something wrong. Couldn't be further from the truth. It's not your job to figure out why. It's your job to have a loving, thoughtful, and be helpful when others have broken hearts. That's your job. Now, rush to that person. Don't stand in judgment like Job's friends. Hey, what can we do to help? We're here. It could be just to show them how much people care. I actually, a buddy of mine in high school, I was talking to him, and I never really knew, but he was a Jehovah's Witness. I met up with him a few years ago, went back to Australia, and I asked him, well, how did you become a Jehovah's Witness? He said, well, something happened in his family, and the Jehovah's Witnesses all rallied around and helped his mother and helped them, and they all supported them, and that's kind of what made them become a Jehovah's Witness, because the Jehovah's Witnesses did that. And I'm like, maybe somebody needs to see that and needs to see Christian love, and people rally around to help them. Christ has been great to us. Encouraging text from someone who has just gone through heartache. We had some encouraging texts, when we went through some things in our lives, and that meant so much. Just people texting. Somebody left flowers and a card. I don't know if they left a name or not, but that was a blessing, and I appreciate this church, and I appreciate people that rally around in times of need. I was talking to somebody yesterday, and they were saying just when they were going through something with one of their kids, and they're at the hospital, and they're just saying the flood of people that came and gave their support, and they said they felt so bad for the people that had nobody. They're in the hospital, and they got maybe one parent or one person, and nobody else came up to help them or give support, and they're all alone. And I'm grateful as church that we rally around to those that are in need. Encourage them. Send them a text. Be encouraging. Don't try to judge. Don't tell them of any criticism that you've heard. Brother Hiles says he regularly walks from his office to the pulpit, and just before he gets to the pulpit, the platform, the man would put his arm around him and say with emotion, "I'm for you, preacher, no matter what they say." He says, I'm up there the whole message wondering, what did they say? Don't ever do that, okay? Especially not before somebody's got to preach. I had somebody do that, and he's like, I got an issue. We need to talk after you're done. I'm like, it just fried me. Like 2 minutes before I get up there, I'm like, what's the issue? What's going on? What's going on? And I'm like, that is like the worst thing that you can do. So the whole time I was distracted by thinking, what was wrong? What was the issue? We're going to have this meeting. Please don't do that to to the preacher or anybody getting up there. Don't do that to anybody. The man loved him but didn't comfort him. Okay, we can be loving, and he probably thought he was doing a good thing, but that's not very comforting. He said one little girl wrote a note to Brother Hiles that said, "Dear Brother Hiles, I love you in spite of the fact that nobody else does." Okay, yeah, that's good to know. You know, I was thinking about that, and like, where did the girl get that from? Parents, yes, she must have heard that from somebody. Be careful talking around your kids. We think they can't listen and they don't have ears. And, you know, I am amazed at what my kids repeat and say and what they pick up. And, you know, every little thing you don't want them to repeat, you know, the one little bad scene or the one bad word in the show, or even on Patch. What was the one word they were repeating? They weren't saying it as a good word, they were saying it as bad, but the kids started saying it, you know. But they can hear, they can listen. This girl probably got it from her parents or adults that were talking about it. She didn't just make it up. So the note wasn't as comforting as she intended it to be. So don't tell them of any criticism that you've heard, okay? People don't need to know that. Just shut people down when they're criticizing other people. Okay, I don't want to be the guy that everybody comes to when they got problems with everybody else, and I tell Brother B.A. He's got an ear for me, and he'll hear everything I said. Hey, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear negative about somebody. So I don't know why I use Brother B.A. all the time. Sorry. Use unsaid words to express sympathy. Sometimes a squeeze of the hand, a pat on the back, or a touch of the elbow is all that is necessary. It's just a little gesture saying everything is the same, nothing has changed. You know, sometimes you don't know what to say, don't say anything. Just put your arm around them, just give them a pat on the back. You know, let them know you're there, and they know that. Just checking the time here. I'll just finish this point here. Show confidence in them. Talked about a man that he was supposed to preach at one of his ministries, and some heartbreak came up in his life, and devastating thing. He's supposed to preach, and he just sends him a note, and he just basically said, "Hey, I can't wait for you to come and preach." And he was looking forward to having him, and that really encouraged the guy. And he broke it. He didn't want to be reminded of the cause, and didn't about what was going on. He just wanted to let him know that nothing had changed. Everything was okay. Everything was normal. His heart was express your love and friendship to the heartbroken. Express your love and friendship to the heartbroken. He talks about John R. Rice, another famous preacher. He's going through a difficult time. People are slandering him, talking bad about him. And he's on the platform and he's speaking. They're speaking together. And all he did was he just sat down next to him, just squeezed his knee and said, "I'm your friend." Okay, he didn't need to get into this whole big thing, and he just said, "I'm your friend." And years later, the roles were reversed, and Brother Hiles was being slandered against, and everybody was saying things about him, and Brother Rice got on the platform and did the same thing, and just said, "Please knee," said, "I'm your friend. I'm here for you." And sometimes just let people know you're there for them. Love and friendship could be expressed by a gift sent seemingly for no reason at all, or a card or an embrace or an arm around the shoulder. The one consoling the heartbroken should not do it too strongly. Just let the heartbroken know that it's all the same, nothing has changed. So like I said, a lot of people going through a lot of things just in this room here, and just some ways to help people, how to deal with it. I know sometimes I wonder, do I ignore it? What do I do? Sometimes I avoid the person because I don't know how to act. I don't know what to say. And just some simple things here to help the heartbroken. Act as normal as possible. Don't mention their problem. Sometimes if they bring it up and they want to talk about it, let them talk, take your cues. Sometimes, I don't know if it's me or you go to different funerals, and some funerals are different. Some people are celebrating life and making jokes, and and some people are just in mourning. I kind of go along with what the people there are. If they're all teared up, I'm not going to start telling jokes. If they're, laughing and just celebrating that person and everything, then go along with that. But act as normal as possible. Don't mention their problems. Don't try to figure out why. Okay, you'll never know. You're not God. You're not going to know the mind of God. Don't tell them of any criticism that you have heard. I just want you to let you know that these people are saying this thing. Like, I don't want to know. Please, I was better off not knowing that people are talking behind my back. Please, that didn't help me. Now I'm worried about that. Use unsaid words to express sympathy and show confidence in them. Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we love you, dear Lord. We just pray for those that are heartbroken in this church, dear Lord, that are going through things, and help us to know how to deal and help them and encourage them. And just thank you for this church. We love you in Jesus' name. Amen.